you were particularly concerned in your writing with the emergence of the presidency as the central institution in our democracy, the one that really makes the calls on spending, borrowing, foreign policy, domestic policy in a way that, and this I find and have found inspiring in what you've written, that in fact we are a democratic republic. The most important, by far, the most important institution in that is the Congress, that is the representative.
Should be, isn't.
Right. Tell me why you're so suspicious of the executive branch's prerogatives at this point. Which ones are you particularly concerned with?
I'm particularly suspicious, A, because the presidency is one person, and one person should not have all this power. Second, however, the eclipse of Congress and the simultaneous and consequent inflation of the presidency beyond all imaginings by the founders is not just the natural consequence of, not the predictable consequence of, but the stated aim of progressivism. Woodrow Wilson, who was the first president to criticize the American founding, which he did not do peripherally, but root and branch, he said what's wrong is the separation of powers, the heart of the matter. He said that was just fine when the framers wrote the Constitution. There were only 4 million of us, and 80% of us lived within 20 miles of Atlantic tidewater. But now we're a great continental nation strung together with steel rails and copper wire, and we need a nimble, firm, emphatic government run by people like Woodrow Wilson. Now, Woodrow Wilson was a PhD. He was an academic who wrote a book on Congress before seeing Congress. And he said, the object of the game is to marginalize politics, to marginalize Congress, which is full of people who are not the experts with which we're going to staff the didn't use the term then, we do now, the administrative state. The president, said Woodrow Wilson in so many words, should be free to be as big as he can be. Now, he was here picking up off that human steam shovel, Teddy Roosevelt, who had what he called the stewardship view of the presidency, which was the president is free and entitled to do anything he can, anything he's not forbidden to do. For example, in his first term, and when he became president, of course, by assassination of McKinley, there was an anthracite coal strike in Pennsylvania. It was a huge deal back then. This was before we hated coal. The country was run on coal. And the president intervened in the coal strike. Unheard of. But it was the thin end of an enormous wedge. By the time Woodrow Wilson's Assistant Secretary of the Navy, named Franklin Roosevelt, became president, Roosevelt gave, in his first fireside chat, shortly after his inauguration on March 4th, 1929, he gave, in 33, Roosevelt gave a fireside chat in which the first words he spoke are not in the transcript up at Hyde Park, but he said them. He began by saying, "My friends." Now, part of his genius was he knew that he was talking to people in their living rooms, because by then most people had a Philco or a Zenith radio. But it's inconceivable that George Washington would have said "my friends," because they weren't his friends. And, more to the point, George Washington's auditors didn't want him to be, didn't expect him to be their friend. They wanted him to take care that the laws are faithfully executed. Not good enough for the modern president. He wants to be our friends. And this emotional intimacy that has now been established with the chief executive of the United States is infantilizing and unhealthy.
Yes, he called them my friends. Clinton said, "I feel your pain."